I'm Eli Fishpaw. Most of y'all know me, but maybe not everybody. I'm co-president of RACC, and I'm the facilitator this year for the seminar series. I'm hoping we can stimulate an open conversation about dilemmas we face so we can imagine a path to protecting and enhancing life resilience. Some programs will be intended to honestly explore dilemmas where we are searching for a direction. Other programs like tonight seeks to imagine a way to implement technologies we know work for more people. Other programs we want to feature role models for solutions. Barbara Walsh is going to monitor our technology tonight. She's the executive director for RACC. And Bob Biersack is going to introduce our speaker. And Bob is also a co-president of RACC. I just want to announce our next program on Wednesday, February 16th, 7 p.m. We will host Steve Hart, who is a local cattle farmer, using planned rotational grazing. So the question is, can this be a benefit to the climate? I am sure this will be an interesting program. I hope you all can participate. Tonight's speaker, Jeff Heie, is invited to present for 45 minutes. After that, we will take questions and comments. I will ask that during Jeff's talk that you mute your device, and our intention is to finish at 8 o'clock. So, Bob.
Thanks, Eli. Thanks for putting this together and continuing this seminar series this year. A number of us around the community have talked to each other and expressed interest at one time or another in trying to expand the opportunities for renewable energy, and particularly solar power, beyond those of us who have already taken advantage of it, because we had the financial means, we had the wherewithal to do that, to find ways to make it available in broader parts of the community where maybe those resources are not so readily available. It's a challenge that every community faces. And while we were talking and thinking about different ways to do it, I happened upon an article that talked about a program that already existed in Harrisonburg, pretty close by, where they had made progress and actually created some institutions, some organizations, and installed some solar for nonprofit organizations, and we're expanding that program to other kinds of opportunities, like, for example, Habitat for Humanity, to include it in the development of those housing projects as they were being built. The program was so successful, it raised so much funding initially that they felt like they were able to try to expand that program across the state of Virginia, and have had some success initially in finding other kinds of organizations, especially Habitat local organizations who are interested in that. The person behind that program is with us tonight, Jeff Heie, who has spent the last 20 years or more in a whole variety of ways, doing advocacy and organizing and even installing solar in some contexts, developing a kind of an expertise and experience that really fits the notion of what we had in mind. And so when I asked him to give us a sense of how that program's working and see whether we could maybe take advantage of at least the structures or maybe more, he was very happy to join us tonight, and I really appreciate that, and look forward to the presentation. So Jeff, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you all, particularly Eli and Bob, for that introduction. It's nice to be with you on this still snowy Wednesday evening. It was great to get that snowstorm up in Harrisonburg as well, but I spent a little bit too much time shoveling yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll be showing you a slideshow of about 20 slides. It may be a little less than 45 minutes. I'm hoping to be around 30 or 35 minutes, and hopefully we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussion. Barbara said that she might occasionally interrupt me if there's a question that's specific to one of my slides. Barbara, are you still asking people, or would you like to ask people to put questions in the chat?
Maybe during the presentation, but at the end, I'm hoping we can have a conversation. So
okay.
That'd be great.
Okay. Very good. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
I just want to note, I suppose when people are getting used to the syntax on the Zoom, but you can change the size of the screen that Jeff is sharing by that vertical line, putting your cursor on that vertical line and dragging it to the left or to the right to have a bigger picture of Jeff or a bigger picture of the screensaver. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming, let's see, I want to make sure I'm not muted. Okay, there we go, ready to go. All right, so I'm going to start off with just a little introduction. So you see three logos on this first slide: the Habitat for Humanity Virginia, Give Solar, and Solar United Neighbors. Those are the three partners in a 2-year project that I have just started December 1st of last year. And I'll go into a lot more detail than that, but I wanted to just start by highlighting these three organizations that are involved in this 2-year project. All right, so first a little history of Give Solar. Really this whole notion of volunteers and community members getting involved in solar installations started about 5 years ago. We did a big installation, I think it was about 113 kilowatts, on a local thrift store called Gift and Thrift. And that was kind of the beginning of this project. And that system has been up and running for 5 years now, saving them, I believe it was about $14,000 a year as a result of the solar. So it's a really significant system, and they're saving significant funds. So with that project under our belt, that happened in 2016, I began thinking, there's really, it's difficult for nonprofits and low income people to access solar. And I wrote a grant to Merck, the pharmaceutical company. They have a grant program called Neighbor of Choice. And we happen to have a Merck manufacturing facility up here in near Harrisonburg in Elkton, Virginia. And I was successful at getting that grant. The initial focus of the Give Solar project was helping nonprofit organizations to gain access to solar. As many of you know, the tax incentives that exist do not really apply to nonprofit organizations. Most nonprofits are struggling to make ends meet already. And so the idea of having a large upfront cost to install solar was just a non-starter for most nonprofits. So that's the way this project started. It was conceptualized as a community-supported effort that focused on crowdfunding and also on a volunteer-led solar installation that became known as a solar barn raising, which is a curious term. I'll go into that a little bit more in some of the later slides. So in the process of doing crowdfunding and solar barn raisings, I started to develop a database of solar supporters in our immediate area, Harrisonburg, Rockingham County. That list is now about 600 strong. It includes people who have in one way or another demonstrated their support of solar. And so this would be anybody from solar homeowners. We did a solar census in our town to track how many systems exist in Harrisonburg. And that was really useful in figuring out, okay, who are the homeowners. We eventually kind of figured out based on the addresses and the real estate records, all of the names and addresses of these homeowners. And then the people who participated in crowdfunding, they also were added to the database. And yeah, so that really formed the basis for later chapters of this project that I'll get into a little bit more. Having that base of support people who have somehow demonstrated support of solar was really the secret of the success of what we did with Habitat in the last year, and I'll go into more detail on that. So, after maybe I'll tell you a little bit about what you see in the picture here. This is a nonprofit organization called Gemeinschaft Home. This was our second project. We installed a 25 kilowatt solar system on 2 of their roofs. For those who don't know, and that's probably most of you because you don't live in Harrisonburg, Gemeinschaft Home is a transitional home for people who are getting out of prison, and it provides I believe it's a 60 or 90 day residential facility that assists people who are getting out of prison in securing housing, a job, and other services. So for me, it was important to consider nonprofits that were doing direct service to people in need. And that was my initial criteria for working with the 2 nonprofits that we worked with. So as a result of these first 2 projects, I was approached by a friend of mine who is a Habitat for Humanity board member in our area. He approached me and said, "Hey, I'd love to get solar on Habitat homes." And this would have been the summer of, what year are we in again? 2020, summer of 2020. So I launched this project with Habitat for Humanity in October of 2020. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So the project that was launched with Central Valley Habitat for Humanity was started in October, as I mentioned. And the first thing that we did was we did a pilot project. That project was basically intended to prove the concept of raising crowdfunding funds to pay for the initial solar system. We successfully did that in about a month. We raised $8,000, and then a few weeks later, we had raised a full $10,000. So that project and the success of the fundraising led me to make a proposal to the board of the Central Valley Habitat to have a goal of raising a larger sum of money for what we now call a solar seed fund. And in February of 2021, that's when the board approved this campaign to raise a solar seed fund. And our goal was to raise $100,000. I'm not a fundraiser. I had no idea whether or not I would be able to do this. But I was pretty confident based on, the database of supporters that we had developed that I could do it, but I wasn't sure how long it would take. In the end, it took about 7 months to get past our goal of 100,000. During that time, we installed 4 solar systems, 2 systems on 2 different duplexes. Central Valley Habitat often builds duplexes, and so we were able to do 2 systems on 2 different duplexes, one in Broadway, Virginia, and one in Harrisonburg. Okay, so this concept of a solar seed fund, you're probably asking, how does it work? We raised this in the photo, if you can read it, we raised a total of $127,000, and that money will be used to pay the upfront costs of solar on all of the houses that our local Habitat affiliate builds in the next 5 years. So they build around 4 units a year. So 4 times 5 years is about 20 systems. Initially, we were hoping that we'd be able to install these systems for about $5,000. We were a little bit off on that. We came in at about $6,000 per system. And so if you can do the math, 6 times 20 is about 120,000. So for the next 5 years, the local Habitat affiliate has this fund that they can draw on to pay for the upfront costs. So I mentioned in the slide, it was really useful to engage the environmental crowd. in this process. That is one of the strengths of the idea of a solar seed fund, is that environmentalists, people who are concerned about the planet, are really quite motivated to do things in this realm, especially relating to equity and access. And I just found there to be overwhelming support for the Solar Seed Fund. A lot of it coming from the environmental crowd. And what's noteworthy about that is, you know, some of these people may be Habitat for Humanity supporters already, but many of them are not. And so we are bringing people into the Habitat fold in this process, and hopefully expanding the donor base for Habitat affiliates. So after we install the system, then the homeowners are asked to repay the cost of the system, but basically the $6,000 is rolled into the mortgage. And the way that it's working with Central Valley Habitat is that $20 of their mortgage payment will be returned back to the Solar Seed Fund. Now, it'll take a long time to recover that whole $6,000. It's designed to be recovered over the course of the whole mortgage. So some other Habitat affiliates have different financing structures for their mortgages. I believe Rockbridge uses USDA loans. We can talk a little bit more about that later. But there's different models for financing that may be even more conducive to what we did with Central Valley Habitat. Okay, so we launched this 2-year project, as I mentioned, on December 1st. About 15 affiliates around the state have expressed initial interest in participating. Just noticing that there's a lot of glare on my glasses. So we have 15 affiliates who have expressed some level of interest, and some of them will probably go ahead and pursue a solar pilot project. There's the 2-year project with Habitat Virginia and Solar United Neighbors is twofold. We are offering to work with affiliates to do a solar pilot project, which would be one solar system fully funded by grant funding to teach the affiliate what are the issues that they need to consider in installing a system, how large of a system, how much of their electricity demand are we going to try to offset with the solar system. So we're anticipating partnering with affiliates such as Rockbridge Area Habitat for a period of 2 to 5 months, which would give us the time to complete a pilot project. But in that process, we're also wanting to explore with the affiliates how to make solar a sustainable part of building Habitat homes. That doesn't put a lot of financial strain on the affiliates. You may or may not know, I think most of you do, that the cost of construction materials has gone up quite a bit recently. And so Habitat affiliates are really feeling that pinch. And so I'm very aware and sensitive to the fact that putting more of a fundraising burden on Habitat affiliates at this time is just not a good idea. So, so you may be asking Solar United Neighbors, what do they have to do with this? Some of you have participated in solar co-ops. I've heard from Bob that there was 1 or 2 maybe that were organized in your area. So Solar United Neighbors is a network of solar homeowners and industry, solar industry businesses. And we'll be working with Solar United Neighbors to identify solar installers who are inclined to support solar on Habitat homes. So they'll be helping us to identify installers in different regions of Virginia that might be willing to work on this project and install systems at a reduced cost for low-income homeowners. I'm also working on getting a solar panel donation that is still being negotiated, and I wish I could share more information about that, but I'm not free to do that at this point. And that another purpose of this 2-year project with Habitat Virginia and Solar United Neighbors is to mentor affiliates to continue the project after the 2 years. So I hope to be working with either volunteers, Habitat staff, or board members to be the energy force that continues this project after the 2-year project. So we have people, Carol Comstock, I've been in conversation with. He's agreed to be a local point person with Rockbridge area, assuming that we move forward with your local Habitat affiliate. So it's really critical to have people like Carol who are interested in this and involved and motivated, because it helps to make the project successful. So here's a few of the purposes and goals of doing a solar pilot project. We want to normalize the process of installing solar, just like installing windows and HVAC systems and roofs. We'd like to see solar be a matter of course on Habitat homes. It's not going to work for all Habitat affiliates, but if we can help make it work for some, I'll consider it a success. As I mentioned, we're hoping to create strong partnerships with solar installers. We want to integrate the installation of the solar into the design and construction process. You know, we're asking questions like, at what point in the construction process does it make sense for the installers to come in, put up their equipment? The way we're doing it with Central Valley Habitat is it's parallel to the electricians doing their electrical rough-in. The solar installers are also coming in and installing their conduit and wiring and AC disconnects and all the related equipment. So the solar barn raising is another part of this that we feel is important to integrate into the affiliates' volunteer opportunities. It fits with Habitat's ethic and ethos of utilizing volunteer labor to get community support, but also to reduce the overall expenses of the project. And as I mentioned, we're training a volunteer staff member or board member to carry this project forward. I also already mentioned the attempt to expand the donor base of Habitat affiliates by bringing environmental groups and individuals who are on that wavelength into Habitat's fold. Oops, I skipped one. So every good project needs an elevator speech. My elevator speech is threefold. I guess you could call it a 3-point sermon too, if you wanted to. Access to clean energy, economic security, and climate change solutions. Those are the three overarching goals that we're trying to achieve with this project. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those. So solar access, as I believe Bob mentioned earlier, people who are in the middle class and upper class can usually afford to do solar if they so choose, but lower income households have a much harder time gaining access, and it is cost prohibitive for low income people. So the investment tax credit doesn't help very much either, because you have to have tax liability in order to take advantage of that 26% tax credit. So that's a dead end for most Habitat homeowners, because they are typically, I believe, below 80% of the area median income, and many of them just don't qualify for the tax credit. So there are some financing models that help overcome this barrier, or these barriers. The solar seed fund would be one of those models. Habitat also has low and no interest mortgages, which is a really great opportunity because if we're able to roll the cost of solar into the cost of the home, then it will raise the mortgage slightly, but the impact, the economic impact on a family's budget will be, I'm going to go into the numbers in a later slide, so that's why I'm holding off. I'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, the cost of the solar can be rolled into the mortgage. All right, so economic security. This is an actual bill of a customer in Broadway, Virginia. It's been redacted, so you can't see the account numbers or the names, but hopefully what you can see is the $7.63 is their bill. This was a bill from August 27th. And if you have a big screen, you may be able to see that during June, July, and August, they had 0 electricity usage. And when they have 0 usage, their bill is $7.63. What we're finding overall, on average, is homeowners are saving about $50 a month. Now, this is a system that is a little less than 4 kilowatts. It was 3.78 kilowatts, 12 solar panels, and it's resulting in $50 of savings each month. The other thing that some of you may be aware of is solar renewable energy credits. Homeowners can choose to sell these credits and make another perhaps $200 a year if they sell their credits. So it's another source of income. And then in the way of economic security, what's likely to happen in Virginia in the next decade is that our utilities will be inflating our rates by 3.6% per year. And that is projected for the next 10 years. So that is a very significant expense for low-income households. And solar will protect homeowners from those rate increases that are pending. And finally, climate change solutions. Whoops, apologize. A 5 kilowatt system, which is 12 or 15 panels, produces about 7,000 kilowatt hours annually and reduces carbon dioxide emissions by about 5 tons annually over 30 years. 192 kilowatt hours, or sorry, 192,000 kilowatt hours of electricity and 150 tons of CO2 reductions. And for those who like the equivalency of trees, it's the equivalent of saving 126 trees annually for 30 years. So for those who have solar, a lot of this information will be review. These are some of the design considerations that I recommend to Habitat affiliates. As close as possible to south-facing roof. A 512 pitch is the optimal pitch in Virginia. That will result in the highest number of kilowatt hours produced. And I went back and forth with the structural engineer. I thought it was more like 37 degrees, but he pushed back on it and said it was a 512, which I think that's more like 25 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. A rectangular shape just makes for a simpler installation if you're able to keep it in a simple rectangle. House designs don't always permit that, but that's what I recommend if at all possible. System size according to usage. I'm working on a equation for how to do system sizing based on square footage, based on the number of family members and a few other variables. So that is a work in progress for me right now. Another design consideration is it might be that some homeowners will choose to add more solar to their system. They may also choose at some point down the road to install battery backup. And so I encourage Habitat affiliates to consider these issues as well. One example, and maybe some of you have done this, is some people are wanting to charge an electric vehicle using their solar. And, you know, down the road, when electric vehicles are a little bit more affordable, I think low income households, you know, will gain access to those vehicles as well. And solar is a great way to provide the electricity for an electric vehicle. And then the last point is avoiding shading of panels, and that's kind of a no-brainer, but worth suggesting. So at the bottom of this slide is the duplex that you see in the picture at the top of the slide, and we're gonna watch a solar barn raising. It just takes about 20 seconds, and I'll go ahead and start it for you. So we had, I think, around 8 to 10 volunteers helping out on the solar barn raising. And these are just community people. Some have helped on previous solar barn raisings. I think we had a reporter there that day from a website. So that's what the solar barn raising looks like. We set up some scaffolding, and we've come to the point now where we try to keep volunteers off of the roof and just have the installers up on the roof, just for liability reasons and safety reasons. But we do set up the scaffolding and have some volunteers standing on the scaffolding and hoisting the panels up to the installers up on the roof. Whoops. Oh, well, looks like you might get to watch it again. All right, so I apologize. Okay, so the whole concept of a solar barn raising, you know, you might be asking, why do this? And here's a few of the reasons. I also thought it would be useful to, you know, look up on Webster what actually a solar barn raising is. So this is what Webster had to say. A barn raising occurs when a community actively decides to come to the same place at the same time to help achieve a specific goal. So this really fits with Habitat's ethos, as I mentioned earlier. It's an educational event. Many of the people that you see in the photo are, you know, touching solar panels for the first time. This install that you see in the photo happened at Gemeinschaft Home. So we had a few of the residents at Gemeinschaft helping out with this install, and then several community volunteers as well. It's also a fundraising opportunity. We found them to be very compelling media events, and we had a lot of good media coverage of the solar barn raisings that we've planned in our area. And if you decide to, you know, be inspired by this model, I think we will. I'll do whatever I can to help you organize some solar barn raisings in your neck of the woods as well. The barn raising also helps to keep the solar affordable. It's not a huge savings, but we are utilizing some volunteer labor, and every little bit helps. And then we're also, when it comes to Habitat, we're encouraging the homeowners to be involved in the solar barn raising, and they gain a better understanding of what their solar system is actually doing up on their roof, how it works, and what to do if they ever have any questions or troubles with the system. So the other thing that we've worked pretty hard to do is create business opportunities for the solar installers who are partnering with Habitat. And the installer that I work with in Harrisonburg, Green Hill Solar, I've tried to direct business his way, because he is sacrificing what he would ordinarily charge for a solar system by installing on Habitat homes. So whenever possible, I try to direct business his way. If someone calls me and says, hey, you know, who should I get to give me a bid for a solar installation, I recommend Green Hill Solar, and hopefully they are getting some business opportunity out of partnering with Habitat. All right, so I mentioned earlier the idea of a solar access toolbox, and this is the part of what I'm working on in the next 2 years, where I'm trying to provide tools for Habitat affiliates to figure out what makes sense for them to install solar on their homes. So the Solar Seed Fund, you've got a pretty good introduction to that, but there's other models out there. A power purchase agreement is a model where a for-profit entity would come in and own the system for a set period of time. It's usually 7 to 10 years. At the end of that time, they would transfer the ownership back to the homeowner. That model might make sense for some Habitat affiliates. I want to put all of these tools into the toolbox and see what makes sense for each individual affiliate. Carbon offsetting is a model that you think about corporations or businesses who are building a new building or renovating a building, and they are concerned about the greenhouse gas emissions that are being caused by this new build or renovation, and they want to offset those greenhouse gas emissions. So what can potentially happen is that they can partner with Habitat and say, all right, we're going to offset our greenhouse gas emissions from this renovation project by purchasing solar panels for Habitat homeowners and making a donation of equipment. So I'm working with a potential donor right now, and crossing my fingers that will happen. Some of you may know of Charlottesville-based nonprofit called Local Energy Alliance Partnership, or LEAP. They also do solar. They start by doing energy efficiency work. This model is particularly relevant to organizations that are doing renovations. So potentially LEAP can come in, do their energy efficiency work on a house, and then that energy efficiency work will qualify the homeowner to also do solar. So it's another avenue for getting access to solar through LEAP. And those funds are coming from federal monies as well as state funds that were available through RACC, but many of you probably know that RACC is, I believe, dead in the water. So two other models of note: green banks. The whole green bank movement is getting going around the country. Virginia does not yet have an active green bank, but Fairfax County is in the process of studying the green bank, and I believe that they are trying to get a green bank going. The green banks offer financing for specifically renewable energy projects, as well as energy efficiency, and that they have different requirements for who is eligible for their loans. Some low-income homeowners may be eligible by showing a utility bill that has been paid on time over the course of many months, and that may be enough to qualify them for a solar loan. And then community solar is something that you all are probably familiar with because BARC offers it in your area. You pay a little bit more for a subscription to BARC's community solar program, and that's another avenue for low-income households to gain access. So you get the idea. This is a toolbox of different tools for accessing solar. There's probably more that will be added, but for now, this is a start. All right, so this is a little graph or table of what we've seen from one of the systems that we've installed. These are the actual numbers from a 3.78 kilowatt system, 12 solar panels. You can see summertime numbers are up above 500 as far as the kilowatt hours produced, and the savings are, 60 some dollars, but you get into the later months, September, October, November, and you're down in the 400s and 300s. And I don't even want to tell you what January looks like. I've been tracking that. The snow is on the panels. It's not looking good. But overall, the monthly savings is still very worthwhile. We're at around $50, and we're producing, as I say on the bottom of the slide, around 484 kilowatt hours per month. I expect that number to go down a little bit because of the winter months. And we're using, on the systems that we're installing up here in Harrisonburg, we're using N-phase microinverters, which allow, this technology allows us to track the production and savings of the system. It also is an easy way to figure out if there are any problems, which panel and which microinverter are the source of the problem. So this is the web platform that we use to track the systems, and the homeowners have access to this as well, so they can see how their system is doing. And yeah, a lot of them are really interested in following how much electricity they're producing. So there's several opportunities for homeowner engagement in this process of installing solar on Habitat homes. Very similar to a walkthrough that you would do when you build a house with your contractor. We also are incorporating a solar walkthrough to explain the solar system to the homeowner, tell them how to do the tracking of their solar system, tell them what to do if they have any problems, who to call, and so on. We're also trying to engage homeowners on energy efficiency measures. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, you see a graphic that's was turned into a refrigerator magnet. And so we had some of these printed and are giving them to homeowners and telling them that, you know, these are tips that you can follow in order to keep your electricity bills small. And this too is a work in progress. I think there's other things that could be included here. There's maybe some that shouldn't be included, but you know, we had to start somewhere. So I mentioned the SRACs already. They're registering for SRACs can be a pretty challenging process. So we're finding that homeowners often need a little bit of help in getting registered to sell their solar renewable energy credits. And then solar tracking, I've mentioned already that the homeowners have access to tracking their systems. So I've mentioned SRACs, and I'm not going to cover this slide in detail, but for those who don't know about SRACs, when you sell your SRACs that you are entitled to as a result of producing solar energy, you're basically selling your bragging rights to say that you produce renewable energy. It's kind of a slippery concept, because really the solar that you're producing on your roof is going to power your house first. And if there's more power being produced than your house needs, then that goes out onto the grid. But you also have the opportunity to sell the bragging rights to, let's say, a business that wants to go net zero or wants to reduce their carbon footprint. They will buy your SRACs, and the current going rate for SRACs is somewhere between $30 and $40 per SRAC, and one SRAC is equal to 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. So if you think about the table that I just showed you, the homeowner who's producing 500 kilowatt hours each month, it will take them 2 months to get one SRAC, and they can turn around and sell that SRAC for $30 to $40, depending on what the market rate is. So not all Habitat homeowners are interested in pursuing this, but I feel like I am obligated to tell them about it, because it is a source of income. And you know, who wouldn't want to have an extra $200 in your pocket, you know, for the year? I know I would. So yeah, I also emphasize that selling your SRACs has no impact whatsoever on the amount of money that you save on your electricity bill. So that's something to remind homeowners of. So these are the families in Harrisonburg and Rockingham County who, let's see, 4 of them have solar, and the 2 on the bottom left of this slide are about to get solar. In fact, we're going to be doing another solar barn raising next Friday, and we'll be putting the solar up for those 2 families. So you get an idea of the people being served. Habitat serves a very diverse population of households, and it's been really great to work with these families. So I thought I would leave you with the idea that your community, if you chose to, could create a solar seed fund. And I've already talked to you a little bit about the process, but you would set a goal. You could organize a campaign for 6 to 10 months. Sounds like we're getting some feedback here. I have some people who are lined up who are interested in providing a seed donation at the very beginning. And so I'll be working on getting more of those people lined up for Habitat affiliates who are interested in doing a solar seed fund. And then I just made a quick list of organizations in your community that could be partners in something like this. So obviously RACC is maybe the first to come to mind, but you also have experience with the solar co-op participants, and you probably know who many of these people are and probably have a list of them somewhere. Barbara, I think, also mentioned the Chamber of Commerce nonprofit committee. Perhaps you could get the Chamber of Commerce involved in the building of a solar seed fund. Sierra Club and other climate action groups that exist both locally and in the state. I think from what I've seen, they are very supportive of a project like this. And then I'm also having conversations with Rotary clubs. They are already big supporters of Habitat. Many clubs are already supporting the construction, the core mission of Habitat, which is to build affordable housing. So they're already engaged, but I think if we had a campaign that was limited in time frame, I think the Rotary Club would also want to get behind this. So I'll leave you with a question, kind of a big picture question. What would our world look like if the benefits of solar were available to everyone? So just a question to ponder. And with that, I'm going to go to my last slide and open up for questions. I'll keep this slide up for a little while, but then I'll take it down. So I can't see the chat. So Barbara, if there's any questions that you want to share with me.
Well, that's great. If you don't mind, everybody, I know you probably have questions. I do personally, but there were a few questions submitted by registrants when they first registered. So if I can start with those, maybe that'll get our minds thinking and get some more questions from the audience. The first one that was submitted was, how does one go about getting solar for one's own home? So this would not be a Habitat situation when your personal resources are limited or non-existent.
Yeah, it's a good question. Some of the other models that I've mentioned, many banks are doing loans. That is maybe not the most cost-effective approach. Yeah, I bet you there's other people on this call who also have answers to that question, and I would welcome other ideas besides what I have.
Do you see any obstacles to the Give Solar model being extended to other families?
So one of the reasons it makes a lot of sense to partner with Habitat is that they already do a screening process as a part of their application for housing. And so they, Habitat homeowners qualify for a loan by virtue of going through the screening process. So that makes the idea of tagging on a solar system a little bit simpler. So just for another random homeowner, you know, who is low income, it's going to be more difficult because they will have to qualify for a loan. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm doing a great job of answering that question, but you know, a solar seed fund is just an idea that can be used in many ways. You know, it can also be used to support nonprofit organizations. We're just getting ready to partner with the Shenandoah Valley Black Heritage Project to install some solar on their headquarters building. And we're getting people to donate to like a community solar seed fund. And the challenge of creating a solar seed fund like that is that you still have to deal with those questions of who qualifies and, you know, what happens if things go awry, you know, what happens if they don't pay back the cost of their system. So yeah, it's really a tricky issue of screening and making sure people qualify.
Jeff, may I add something here?
Yes.
I am not Jeff Heie, I'm Carol, but I logged in on Jeff's account. I just wanted to say that your comments were all right on target, but I think in fitting with the Habitat philosophy of a hand up, not a handout, that really is where the success of this program is, I think, with Habitat, because in the end, these homeowners are paying for this system. It's rolled into their mortgage, and it's not something that's being given to them, but we're facilitating their access to it through our funding. So I think that's part of the answer that should be loud and clear.
Yes, and thank you, Carol, for, you know, that's one of the mantras that I try to share in presentations like this, and I totally forgot. Carol, you saved the day. Thank you. A handout, not a handout.
The other possibility locally here, Jeff, is that BARC actually has a program where they will finance installations on individual BARC members' homes at reasonable interest rates. So for people who are outside of the Habitat program, might not participate with this kind of option, there are other choices available, and that's one of them. We're lucky here to have a co-op that's thinking that way.
Indeed, yeah, that's excellent. And I think cooperatives as well as municipal utilities are good organizations to push that with, see if they're willing to do what's called on-bill financing. Not many utilities are willing to do that, but there are a few.
So there's another question in the chat, and that is, does LEAP service the Rockbridge County area? Do you know whether they do or not?
I'm pretty certain they will work in most parts of the state. And we have been in conversation with LEAP to work in Harrisonburg, and they're based in Charlottesville. So I think the answer is probably yes. Yeah.
Right. One last one from the pre-submitted questions, and it's a sort of a long one. What struggles do you face with regard to federal, state, and regional government support? And how would you change, oh boy, government systems to make solar opportunities more readily available? Does the government play a role in any of this?
Yeah. Well, the investment tax credit should really be something that's available to all of us. You know, it should not depend on you having a tax liability So it's just available. Unfortunately, it's just available to the people who can already afford solar, but not available to the people who can't. So that would be a policy thing that I would suggest. In Virginia, we have a regulated monopoly, Dominion, and I know that what's happening in my city, Harrisonburg, and what has happened with BARC is they have community solar programs that are charging a premium for solar energy. And we should be at the point now where solar is less expensive than fossil fuel generated electricity. The systems that we're putting up, if you figure out how much they're producing and how much the homeowner is paying, $20 a month, that comes out to 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And the utilities are charging somewhere along the lines of 12 cents, 13, 14 cents. I believe that BARC's community solar program charges $5. And I think that's about 20% above their regular cost of electricity. So the economics of solar are now comparative to the economics of fossil fuels. And if we take into account the greenhouse gas emissions produced by fossil fuels, then solar should be winning, all over the country. So I think our utilities are a big barrier to making the transition that we need to away from fossil fuels.
You've got another question in the chat. Can you see that, or would you want me to read it?
Yeah, I can open that up. Yeah, so do you install solar on previously built habitat homes or only new construction? If on previously built, how does the approval and purchase loan mortgage work? So we're actually we're doing a pilot project right now in Hanover and Prince William County with a Habitat affiliate, and we are installing on the home of an existing Habitat homeowner who I believe has been in her house for 5 years or so. That is a grant funded pilot project, so they're not actually paying for the system. It's a proof of concept for their affiliate. But those are some of the questions that we're still working on. If we do solar on an existing home, how would the solar loan be rolled into an existing loan? When we started this project with Central Valley Habitat, the executive director of Central Valley Habitat was really clear. He didn't want two loans. He didn't want a home loan and a solar loan. And so we opted to have the two together. So someone, Morris, asked a very perceptive question, and we're still working on the answer to that. So
I might be able to answer something here. We do use USDA loans. We don't do Habitat owned, homes. So that becomes that's the homeowner's loan at that time. That's not ours to roll anything into. So we would not be able to do that here in our current model.
Yeah.
It could be that, that changes. I have a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
My brother and sister-in-law own a sustainable energy program, and they install solar panels out west at a place called Planetary Systems is the name of their business. And he is finding a real boon on buying solar panels at a really, really reasonable rate because people are replacing it with the higher technology, the new advanced technology. And they say, now, is that available to private people, or is that only to dealers, or is that something people here could, find out about?
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting realm. And what I've found with solar installers, especially larger installers, is they go into, I guess, for lack of a better term, into a secondary market and find solar panels that are maybe lower wattage. You know, right now they're installing anything from like 350 watts to 400 watts for each panel. But they can find panels that are 315 watt panels and get a really good deal on them. And I think that's probably also true of panels that are slightly used. So I think that is a real possibility. You know, in my project, I've tried to use the best equipment possible, you know, equipment that we can get at a reasonable cost, because I think Habitat homeowners, you know, deserve that. And we want to make sure that what we're putting up on their roofs are going to be reliable for, you know, the 25 or 30 years that they're supposed to last. So I do have a little bit of hesitance regarding using maybe equipment that is a couple of years old. It may also void the warranty on some of the equipment, like for example, on solar panels, they have a 25-year warranty. And some warranties, if you take the panel down and put it onto a different building, it voids the warranty. So I would be concerned about that as well. But it's worth looking into. I'd be interested in hearing more.
Well,
Yes.
I wasn't really addressing the habitat issue. I was addressing the, you know, questions about reasonable panels, or how do people put these on their private homes at a more reasonable cost. I was wondering if there's a black market out there, you know, in Virginia, that people could get some reasonable panels and maybe do that at a lesser cost.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's not a market that I'm familiar with, but I'm guessing it does exist. Yeah.
So Jeff, wanted to say that it's 8:02. We started at 7:02, so this is our hour. So if others have questions and Jeff's willing to hang around for a little bit, maybe we take a few more questions. Are there others with questions? Well, I had a comment that a revolving fund that could potentially be financed with electric savings. So you know, if the benevolence came up with the fund, such that they were the ones that were taking the financial risk, that would be a faster payoff than having it be in a 20 or 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
Because that is what they're saving. So therefore, there's no net additional cash burden on the occupant.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And wherever I've had the decision-making power, I've always opted on the side of trying to maximize the benefit for the homeowner. And the situation that you're talking about definitely would provide access to people who wouldn't ordinarily have access. So that would be another model for making it possible. So yeah, I appreciate that comment.
Another, pardon me for jumping in, but Bob, your experience in running the solar co-op that I was a part of, I think that model could be used. I'm going back to the first question, Barbara, to try to form a co-op that addresses the issue of needs of low-income folks, and how do we help them get to this point, and how do we find a place for existing Habitat homeowners to be a part of this co-op to get the very best price they can. So I think that's something I'd certainly be happy to work with you on that. And I think that may be the best way to address that market, if you will.
Yeah, there are a couple of possibilities there. It may be that the idea of slightly used solar panels, for example.
Yes.
I actually just by coincidence happened to know where there are 32 slightly used, soon to be replaced solar panels that are good probably for another 20 years. Certainly based on the warranty as it was done originally. So there are lots of moving parts to that, and lots of ideas kind of bubbling around in this community about how we might move in those directions. So yeah, I think that's a conversation for another day, but it's absolutely one that we're thinking about.
Anybody else? Well, I do appreciate Jeff, you're a very passionate person, and it's really great to see your joy coming from trying to imagine this way to reduce our emissions so we can fit in that balance that will protect our environment. So I think we'll sign out. I hope y'all will show up next month for our program. So I'm going to end our session here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, good show. Thanks, Jeff. Bob?